Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee. And if you would take the roll call, please.
Chairperson Wickstead. Vice Chair Hanneman.
Here.
Member Cardinal. Here. Member Barrett. Here. Member Justice. Here. Member Kennedy. Here. Member Malay. The quorum's present.
Thank you. First of all, we will be asking for public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we will go on to the next. Is for possible action, the approval of the minutes of May 1st, 2017.
Move the minutes be approved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
One abstain.
One abstain, because you were not here, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the minutes of May 1st, 2017 have been approved. Thank you very much. Okay, we are going on to item number 4, which is for possible action to make a recommendation to the Redevelopment Authority regarding the expenditure of up to $16,000 from the Redevelopment Revolving Fund for fiscal year 2017-18 for the Downtown Business Association's 2017 Arlington Plaza Community Event venue. Lee, would you like to take this?
Sure. Good evening, Lee Plemmel, Community Development Director. Thank you for showing up for this this item on this special meeting this evening. This is, as you read into the agenda, items to recommend to the Redevelopment Authority regarding the expenditure of $16,000, which the applicant is requesting for what we're calling the Arlington Square Community Event Venue. Here representing the applicant is Dean DeLullo from the Nugget. As you recall, at the last meeting, there was an application brought to you. It was admittedly, and I think at Dean's admission, it was a rushed application to try to get to redevelopment. They've gone back with his team and redid the application and put some more information in and has resubmitted. So in order to request the funding for this summer, we're back to this meeting. If with your recommendation, whatever that is today, we'll take it to the Board of Supervisors on June 15th, and they'll consider the funding for this request. The Board of Supervisors, I was going to note this a little bit later, but it's applicable to this. The Board of Supervisors did approve the funding for the 2 other redevelopment special events that were in the same pot of money, so they approved the $14,000 between the fireworks and Taste of Downtown. So that leaves the $16,000 in next year's fiscal year 2018 budget for special events for that fiscal year, and that's what the request is for this evening. So I think that you have the information, you have the application. Dean's here. I'll conclude with that and take questions, and I'm sure Mr. DeLullo will as well.
Okay, Mr. DeLullo, would you like to come up and tell us more about this?
Sure. I'd like to thank the board for listening to the presentation. And Lee is correct. We came up last month with a concept and an idea that we wanted to run by this group to find out if we can get support. With the funding from this group, we will pull together the necessary funding to complete the project. We're not looking for full funding. We're just looking for startup capital. 100% of the funds are going to go into the setup of a venue that will be able to be used by any downtown business or downtown charity. Our whole goal of this project is take a lot that is currently just a parking lot across the street from the Nugget and set it up as a semi-permanent venue for a few months and allow events that are coming to town to be able to host their event there. One of the ideas behind this concept is a lot of events don't happen because the setup cost is just too much. And if we can set up a venue for a 3 or 4 month time period, then many more promoters, events, and charity will be able to use this venue because the setup costs will all be taken care of. Then all they're going to have to focus on is operational cost. So I am in control of the parking lot that this is being proposed on. I am basically donating that lot for 3 to 4 months, just like I donate it for the ice skating rink. And it's the same concept. The lot goes being donated for free. The venue gets set up just like ice rink for 3 or 4 months. The promoter, whoever it might be, will take care of the operational costs, and all the revenues and profits will go to that promoter or that charity or whatever. So what we're trying to do is use this as a tool just to create some energy downtown. This concept was born last year. If you recall, we did a event. It was a charity event called Road to the Future. The brainchild was the May Adams Foundation, and what they wanted to do is immediately after the road was completed, they wanted to do something for the community to launch a head count, a group event to bring people down and see the new road. So we set up the venue in a very similar fashion with tents and stage and had live entertainment. That was a one-day event. Very, very expensive for a one-day event, which was the kickoff to Nevada Day. So our concept this year is to take that one-day concept and spread it into 3 months and let many people, including a lot of charities, use the event for absolutely free. So that's the concept that we're proposing to you today.
Okay, does anybody from the committee have or here have any questions of Dean?
Just one question, sir.
Yes.
And there's a line item that's $8,000 for miscellaneous. Is there any more background of what that might be covering?
Let me look at the financials so we're looking at the same thing.
That was
So if we're
page 8 of 15.
I have it in front of me. So if you're looking for a total setup of $32,000, is that the bottom line?
Well, it's just
And
the
then-
miscellaneous line item. That's the largest. Well, it's the largest line item. I was just curious, what's that supposed
I
to be
just
for?
want to make sure that we're both looking the same.
Yeah, it's
Project
the ones
is
that talk about
32.
32,000. Yeah.
So we've got the stage, the tents.
It's 8,500. Sorry, my mistake there, but it's the last line item.
No, I see what you're referring to. Mine says 8,500. And I think what we're going to be doing there is this venue is, we have not fully priced every single thing out. This is a contingency that will cover anything that's not covered in any of the lines above. So if we can keep this on budget, the miscellaneous items will not be spent. But since this venue has not been set up and everything's not been fully bid, we have a contingency in of $8,500. So hopefully we'll be able to bring this thing in for less than the projected budget of $32,000.
Any other questions?
Yes. Dean, last meeting, when your representative was here, there were some concerns expressed about if this is a DBA project, why is the DBA not here fronting their own project? Can you enlighten me as to how this has been put together? Are you pretty much the point man on this?
Great question. So this is a brainchild of a committee. A group of people got together. I have control of the land, and so I volunteered the land up to a special use. And we all got together and said, what's the best and highest use this summer for that parking lot? What can we do to drive traffic to downtown? So I met with Mike Riggs of the DBA, and we talked about, we did the event last year, as you know, Road to the Future. And Mike said it'd be great. He said, we've got a committee of people. We've got a whole list of downtown businesses that would love to participate. And so they're on board, and they said, you know, Dean, you get the approval, you build the venue, and we'll be there to support you with the downtown businesses. And Mike has been very supportive. He's been great. We also met with Joel Dunn. He's got a lot of groups coming in, from Epic Rides to a whole list that you see in your package. And if we can get this venue created, we will be pitching it to all those groups. It's a little bit of the cart and horse right now. You know, I am definitely the driving force behind the idea, because I control the land. Without the land, nothing can happen. So it's my job to get the ball moving and get this thing built. And then it's going to be the DBA's responsibility to get the word out to all the local businesses. And as a committee, we've got a committee formed. We're going to continue to work to contact other groups, sports groups, and whatever. So it's kind of like the Field of Dreams. You know, build it and they will come. That's where I'm at right now. If I don't build it, it's going to stay a parking lot. And if I build it, then we'll be able to start the marketing. But it'd be premature for me to go out and really contact all these groups and tell them I have a venue until I get a commitment from the community.
Yeah, and we understand that. I think that's only rational. And we appreciate the idea that you're offering that parking lot up, as you do in the wintertime, for the ice rink.
Yeah, thank you.
I think in terms of ice rink, I started to say roller rink.
Yeah.
Another question. I've not seen a contingency, since you used that word, that is basically a third of the budget, or close to a third of the budget. It's usually around 10%. Would you be able to live with a smaller amount? And then the 32. I know it's as you say, a field of dreams, but sometimes you have to figure out how big the bleachers will be, and then cut them back.
Absolutely. I think the 33 is more of my commitment than yours. What we're looking for today is a commitment of $16,000 from you, and myself, the foundation, and other local businesses will have to make up any shortcoming or any expense over the 16. So I sure hope that 8,500 is zero. However, it's going to depend on the scope and cost of everything that we bid out and as it comes in. So another big moving part that affects the numbers is we were here a month ago, and if we had approval then, we would have opened the venue up sooner. We're asking for approval now. So if we get approval today, it's going to affect the timeline. So one thing that's been changing is the shorter the timeline, the shorter the expense. So if 8,500 gives anyone a hard time, you could take that out of the budget. But we're going to build the venue. It's going to be much more expensive than 16,000, and my job is to keep it as affordable and to bid out the expenses the best I can, and bring this project in as little as possible, but to deliver the impact that we need, the right size stage, the right size tents. We want it to be be impactful on Carson Street and not just look like a little flea market. So we want to make this a first-class venue.
So let me see if I understand what you're saying. If we cut the 16 from our side of the picture, it's 16 and 16 is what you're asking. You'll do 16 from us and 16 from the private sector. You can live with that as a lower contingency.
Well, I'm saying that if this project comes in at 40, anything above the 16 you get is on us, not on you guys.
You do understand, Dean, that the amount of 16 is something that makes us kind of gasp, because we don't have a lot, and I know we have a lot left over, in your view maybe, but we don't have a lot, and we give, fairly small amounts to people when we make these decisions. So I'm just curious as if you could try and bring it down, if we brought our share down, if we were going to go for this.
I can guarantee to you guys, just like many of the operators in this room, we look at all of our costs very closely, and we spend no money that doesn't need to be spent. But none of us likes to skimp either and have less of a venue than Carson City deserves. So, we feel that we can bring this in under budget and have a very first-class venue on Carson Street and deliver the quality of entertainment we need to drive the head count to the town.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dean.
Hi.
Couple questions. One, I think, just to clarify a point, as my fellow board member mentioned just now, if we reduce it by the $8,500 miscellaneous, that reduces the amount that we are able to match as well, because we're only able to match up to 50% of what's asked for, correct? So you'd take the whole thing, and it would be our 16,000 less 4,250, if I'm correct on how we've done this in the past. That's number one. Go ahead, Lee.
Do you want me to answer now?
Sure.
Or wait till you're.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. So actually, that's not the case typically with, like, the facade improvement program is a match. We won't give them the 50 cents till they spend the dollar. But with special events, it's pretty much a grant. So we generally don't track it. That's not to say you can't. So I think so to what you're getting at, your approval or recommendation could be that we'll pay 50% up to whatever number that is. So if it does come in under budget, you're paying 50%. But typically, it's more of a grant. We verify that they expend, as Dean was saying, we'll pay for actual expenses only and get the receipts for that, and they'll pay above that, but we're not tracking the entire event cost to do a percentage of it generally, though we could do that with a specific condition.
Thanks, Lee. Second question is, who owns, is it DBA, is it you, is it the city? Who owns this equipment after the purchase?
Well, this is a committee that's been set up, and all the funds are going to be kept completely separate from any business, from the DBA, from the Nugget, in a separate bank account. And any assets, we hope for this to be an annual event. This is not a one and done, in our opinion. We'd like to make this, just like the ice rink, multiple years. So there would be a storage component to this project, and at the end of the event, whatever is owned would be stored and reused again and again by the committee. So hopefully this is a one-time spend where we can keep this going for multiple years without a lot of additional capital reinvestment.
Okay, thanks. I think for me, you hit a little on the head, cart before the horse. It's hard to look at this when you're absolutely right. You can't go out and try and get a whole bunch of people if you don't have a commitment, but you also need to have some sense of what's coming in, or any new organizations or current organizations that currently utilize other areas within the city. Is there any pulse on the current organizations? You said charities and various folks, either within our current community or from the outside, that you have. I know we have a list of a couple here, but any sense of that as far as moving forward?
Yeah, in fact, if you talk to Joel and if you talk to Mike Riggs and the people that I've talked to, everyone's excited. They're like, okay, yeah, let me know when it's there. And we're not reaching out to them, and they're not reaching back to us with a commitment. But for example, the DBA themselves, and this goes back to answer your question, what's their commitment? They said, the wine walk is by far the most successful thing they do, and they do a great job at it. And they said they'd like to take it during peak season to a much different level. And so the first Saturday of every month, they would want to use this venue to do an outdoor celebration of their event. Right now, it's an indoor event inside the Carson Nugget, and it has several hundred people. What they'd like to do is take this out of the Carson Nugget and out to this venue every first Saturday. So that right there gives you 4 Saturdays in a row just by the DBA. In addition, they've got an event called a chili cook-off that they would like to do. A little bit different than what the Carson Nugget does in Nevada Day. We do a free chili feed, free chili for everyone. That's a promotional announcement brought to you by the Carson Nugget. And that's humor, guys, sorry. But they want to do a real competition of chili, and this is something that they can't do without the venue, and this would be the perfect venue for that. I've also reached out to Michael Hall, who does some street vibration stuff, and he has expressed interest once the venue's there that they might consider doing stuff over at their Harley-Davidson, and then maybe some stuff out here. So once it's here, I think, the knowledge that the venue's here, and I think just the CCVB being able to put out the word to sports organizations to say, hey, you got thousands of people in, come on down and hire a band and have a party. And I think it's just going to be contagious. So, you're one will definitely be the lighter of the 5 years if we run this thing for 5 years. And I can see this thing just really cooking with gas in years 2, 3, 4. But this is the year we got to get it off the ground, and we've got to get it started, and we got to start promoting it.
Thanks, Dean. One more thing. You had mentioned earlier that anyone that's using it, I guess whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, it's going to be the facility and the things that you are purchasing or requesting or looking at purchasing from your request today are going to be free to them, so there's no charge to those people for that. They're just responsible for the operating costs of whatever they're doing themselves.
Correct.
Dean, during the last meeting, they brought up that they were being people that wanted to use that space would be charged an electrical fee or a small fee to use that. Is that true?
Yeah, any cost associated with the land that are direct will be cost of operations.
Okay.
What they're not going to have to pay is they're not going to have to go and rent tents. They're not going to rent a stage. We're giving them a turnkey venue that they can walk into. Remember, our goal is not to make any money on this by the end of the year. If we could break even, that would be fantastic. And any of the costs that are incurred here will be deferred to the operation, such as the variable costs, such as, the toilets will get used, the toilets need to get cleaned. The venue gets used, the venue needs to get cleaned.
And who would they pay for that? Who are they paying that?
We're going to provide the venue. We're not going to provide the operation.
Okay.
So there'll be an outside service that can be hired to set up or clean the venue completely outside the group of the committee. But that'll be part of the restrictions that are put on anyone that uses it. They must have a budget and be able to sustain the operation. They'll get the revenue, and they get the variable costs of the operation.
Okay, thank you.
With regards to your answer on that, is there going to be, I guess I'm a little confused on the point person as well as you are. Is the committee the point, like, say I'm Joe and I'm coming in and I want to have an artichoke festival in the middle of downtown. Who do I contact? Who's the point person? Who do I go through? How's the communication work to do that?
Right now, we have an established committee of Mike Riggs, myself, Jennifer Smith, and Mike has reached out to the DBA, and once approved, he's going to ask for, our goal is to have at least 2 or 3 more members of downtown businesses on the committee. Anything that comes in will go in front of the committee. They'll have to follow our established rules, which I just told you is our goal is to break even and make sure it's the right type of entertainment. Again, we're not looking for flea markets. We're looking for things that add class to Carson City and drive head count. We're not looking for 10 people. We're looking for 1,000 people. We want volume down. We want the venue used, and we want people brought to downtown so that the businesses can actually have people walking on the streets and enjoying the downtown. So the committee is going to vet the group, approve the group, and make sure they follow the rules.
Dean, Kurt's question brought to mind 2 things. One is, Court, if he doesn't hold an artichoke festival, I'll sure come to yours when you hold one. I love artichokes. Secondly, what about insurance? How are you going to ask each event that comes in to provide insurance for this equipment that you would have?
Great question. Great question. Insurance is a big one. So there's 2 things going on. First of all, the Carson Nugget has an umbrella policy over that to protect us. And anyone that we rent it to, we give it to a lot of charities. We have an RV show coming up. We give it to the ice rink committee that does what they do. And we require them putting up a $1 million insurance policy. And there's different forms that they have to fill out. So if anything happens on the property, that is the responsibility of the promoter. And it's their expense to get the insurance. And that's part of the committee's responsibility to make sure that insurance is provided. But in the event that that insurance comes up short, there is the owner of the real estate, which is the Hop and May Adams Foundation, and the operator of the Carson Nugget has an umbrella policy to protect us.
Okay, I have a question, and that is something that I know that every time we give monies out of this committee for actual things, like, for example, you're asking for tents, the stage, hand washing station, tables and chairs, et cetera, and the storage unit. The city basically likes to own it. We just went through this with the projector for downtown. So I did find out that it's only $300 every time you would want to use the stage. Seems to me like in your first year, Dean, that it would be better to go ahead, and the city has 2 stages. And also Parks and Recreation has tables and chairs that can be rented. This is an awful lot of infrastructure monies that would be owned by, I don't know what the answer was that you said, that is very touchy. I know with the Board of Supervisors, if we approve whatever it is tonight, that's only step 1. Step 2 is the final with the Board of Supervisors, because we don't have the full authority on that. But I will tell you that will be something that will be asked, because when you're talking $3,500 for a stage, where maybe not everybody will be using a stage, that seems like a lot of money initially, and the same way with $4,600 for tables and chairs and $3,000 for the unit. So I don't know whether this would be something that Parks and Recreation would want, but I just know that that is something that's going to be asked, because we don't usually give these kinds of venues or these kinds of infrastructure to private entities.
Ronnie, that's a great observation. And one of the first things we looked into was the availability of the stage. And right off the bat, on major event days when the city's doing stuff, and we'd be doing stuff to supplement what the city's doing, the stage is being used. Also, a cost we're looking at is stage setup and tear down. And although it might only be $300 for this and that, where you're going to have your big expenses set up and tear down, one of the concepts here is that we're going to be setting it up as a professional venue, and it's going to be set up, and there's not going to be any tear down. It's going to be set up for 3 to 4 months. It'd be like the ice rink. You're not going to set it up, tear down, set it up, tear down. You set it up, you leave it, and you can sell exactly what you have to whoever's coming in. A lot of bands want to know the size of your stage, the width, the dimension, what your stage sound and lighting is, what your power is, and we don't want to be in a situation where sometimes it's set up, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the city stage is available, sometimes it's not. And that's probably not the best use of the money, is to, rent it sometimes, get it free sometimes. So we were going to set it up once and just leave it set up. And that's the vision behind the thing, is to reduce the labor cost in this venue setup.
I understand that. But again, I think it's going to come down to who actually, and I think you asked that or somebody asked that, who actually is going to be owning this, because it has not been a policy of redevelopment to really provide infrastructure that belongs then to a private entity. It belongs to the public entity, which is the City of Carson City, or Parks and Recreation. So I think that is something that needs to be truly clarified. Lee, do you have any input on this?
Lee Plumwell, Community Development. There's not a policy. I'm here trying to think, and I think you're right. And actually, the expenditure of funds for infrastructure for events is a relatively new thing that we've talked about here quite a bit in the last couple of years, and are looking into the future, transitioning from special events to that. Certainly, there's nothing against it. I mean, redevelopment goes back. We don't have the programs now, but we certainly give money for the facade improvements to businesses that's not returned. There's a long history of that with different types of buildings. So it's not against any policies to do it.
However, this would be a new policy. Facades are year-round. It's not a 3 or 4 month thing. And the ice rink, to which you continue to refer, is owned by the City of Carson City, and thanks to you, have been able to put it on the parking lot. So I think, and I'm just sort of forecasting what may come up, because I watched last week's Board of Supervisors meeting, and there was a lot of discussion, and Bob, John, you can get into this, but there was a lot of discussion on who actually will own the projector, because originally it was not going to be owned by the city. So I think that is a very important question. This is a lot of money out of a very small budget, so that's why I think that needs to be addressed. John, you want to?
Thank you. Yeah, and we did discuss that, and we discussed it at length. We discussed also insurance, which is an interesting aspect. And we also, on this committee, discussed the ownership of the infrastructure that's going to go into the Reimagine project that's being operated in conjunction with the Visitors Bureau, which of course is a city entity. And that infrastructure, lighting, stuff like that for vacant windows to put in art projects, is going to be stored by the Visitors Bureau, but owned by the city. So I think Ronnie raises a good point. It's not that we can't do this. Money is fungible, I recognize that. So you could make the purchases out of the private sector part of the funding that goes into it and use the other money if it came from the city for other aspects of this. I've looked at the budget, but I don't know how that computes. It's one of the reasons, though, that I initially asked the question, and can you live with less? Because the contingency money is large, and in the back of my mind was this very question of who's going to own it, and so I'm glad this has been brought up. I think the board would look askance at the idea. I think Lee's right. There's not a hard and fast policy against it, but nevertheless, buying something for a private entity isn't probably something the board would like to do. I don't want to speak for them all, and I don't know how I'd come down to it. I'd wait until I put that hat on.
I'm only raising that question because I know it's going to come up. I mean, I'm pretty sure.
Ronnie, I think it's a great question. And again, you know, the investment that you guys are going to make is not in equipment. It's in a project. This budget's going to be $32,000. And if we receive funding from this group, it would be very gracious of you guys to give us any type of funding. And we would thank you for anything you give us. But the balance of this project is going to have to be made up by me, other businesses, or the foundation. And we know that there's going to be a serious contribution in energy, time, and money after we get some funding from this group. And then once that funding goes in, what do you own? If you gave $16,000, you owe $16,000, which is 50% of the project of a table. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that aren't tangible. There's going to be an expense. There's going to be setup. There's going to be porta potty rentals. So the funding is not going directly towards an asset. If I came to you guys and said, I want to buy a $400 projector, and the projector was $400, I would say that you guys should own it. You know, it's not my projector. It's $400, and we're going to use it for a time period. The other thing I would say is I would absolutely love for the city to say, Dean, this is a great project. Please do the same thing you do and donate your land like the ice arena, and we will spend the $32,000. We will own it. We will store it. We will set it up, and we will work the downtown businesses and make this happen. But that's not happening, guys, and I'm trying to be proactive, to be the guy that pulls everything together and makes something happen in downtown. We have a beautiful street, and we do not have a marketing plan to get people walking on the street this summer. And so I'm doing what I can do to contribute land, my insurance, the availability of the site to make something happen and bring some people to Carson City. And with your support, we can make that dream happen. And that's all we're asking for. But again, the investment you guys are going to make today is in a project, and I'm going to back it and make that dream a reality. And I'm going to make that one-day road to the future, hopefully a 3-day project that brings thousands of people to downtown Carson City. So I really, really hope we can get your support.
Ronnie, I just totaled up the hard assets in here, and I may be wrong that it comes to $19,480 of actual things like chairs, tables, stages, etc. So I think there's room to look at this in a way that says, if you own them, you buy them out of your own part of the pot, which goes back to the idea of that's more than the $16,000 your side is supposedly putting up, which you say you'd go to when you know, if it went over budget. So it's not unfeasible to look at, infeasible, which are English-wise. Thank you. Whatever. It's not impossible to do if you look at it that way. But I'm pretty sure Ronnie's correct that there are board members that would raise their eyebrows about, gee, we're buying something for the private sector. Well, the facade is different, as Lee points out. It's a year-round permanent thing.
Court?
Just a comment, I think part of it is this is being presented to us in a way that we haven't had it presented before too. So usually speaking, someone comes to us with a specific event, everything's already, you know, all the legwork's been done, the event is going to be this date for this long, this is what it's going to be, and they're not asking for a laundry list of items, they're just asking for a certain amount of startup money to help that specific event go on.
Right.
Yours is a little longer spanning and not quite as concrete and detailed out with a lot of assets. So I think it's presented differently than we normally see it too.
And I'm just doing a venue, Court. I'm not doing the event. I'm trying to create the facility in which the people can come. The key is going to be the promoters. The key is going to be, I think you're going to see the CCVB jump up in a big way and connect with all their people and provide them something they've never had before at no expense.
Dean, why is Joel not here, or the DBA? I'm just curious. I mean, to me, that would have been your rah-rah committee here, and instead it's you who, wonderful, but why are they not here to add to this?
I can't speak for Joel. I believe Mike Riggs is out of town. Mike was planning to come, and he had an event come up, and he told me last minute that he could not make it. I apologize that I couldn't make it. I had a family commitment last month. But, you know, thank you for all of you guys for showing up, or I'd be presenting to nobody.
Well, maybe you are anyway. Sometimes I feel like a nobody. Let me ask you this. Since, as Court points out, this is a horse of a different color, if we can live with that. How you said that if it went over budget, if it went over 32,000, well, you guys would kick in whatever else was needed. But I don't know that you have come before this committee before. I don't know that you understand how little we feel we have to kick in on any given thing. It is true, and I thank you for that. The idea is you'll have various events, not just one, so the bang for the buck might be better. And it's wonderful of you to offer your parcel of property. But can the private sector, which will benefit because there'll be more people in the downtown presumably, come up with more to take this 19,480 off the table? And secondarily, is this seed money in a first time and you won't ever be back? Or is there any plan by your committee to come back and seek more in the future? Because this committee's, even before I got on it, I was here in a different capacity, and they've been talking about getting out of the business of providing money for events for quite a while and making it always with the wording, this is just seed money. So that's two questions, I think.
Okay, well, let me try to handle each question. First of all, I'm only here today to focus on one thing, is to get a project, a dream, a vision off the ground. What next year, next 5 years looks like, I don't know. I hope it's bigger. I hope it's better. I hope that this committee is so impressed with the amount of money we've spent and the venue we've created. They say, hey, we should be doing big bleachers and permanent and build a venue and whatever. I doubt that's the case. I think we have a nice arena that has got a good 3 to 5 year run. If we purchase the equipment, a lot of this equipment, when we get down to it, might turn out to be rental if it can be negotiated cost effectively to be a rental versus a purchase. Once we get the funding, my job is to bring it in on or under budget. And I will make sure that the private sector delivers. Between the foundation, who has spent, I think it was over $15,000 on a one-day event called Road to the Future, right? I know that they're very excited to get more patronage downtown and help the local businesses. And, you know, whatever they're not going to make up, I think I know who's going to have to make it up. So I have complete confidence that the private sector will step up, if no more than just two parties fill that missing bill.
Any other questions? Okay.
Not really a question, just one more statement for the record. I think one of the things that's weighing in my mind, and I don't know if it's with the other committee members too, is when, again, horse of a different color, as you said, John, because this happens to us to fund a special event. You're wanting to fund an idea moving forward and a venue site, so it's just extremely different for us.
And I also think because it says special event funding request form, it's very different, because usually, as Lee had said, and others have said, is like when Taste of Downtown comes, they want X number of dollars, and most of it is half of this. And there's a huge event, and they have all the background, and I understand that there's new things. You keep talking about Road to the Future. I think had you come in with the special event request for Road to the Future for X number of dollars, I think it would have been easier. This is very unusual, not to say it's wrong, but again, the infrastructure, who owns what, it's a lot of money. And some of the things that you have on here, like the list of events, generally, Epic Rides is already, it'll be here next weekend, so that's done. Extreme Motor Officer Challenge has always been on the main street downtown. The DBA, that's an event that has been here that will go on whether or not you have the outdoor event. I think the Chili Showdown is a good one. Your end of summer bash and your Road to the Future. Had those come in as events, which you are doing, I think it would have been easier for people to have sort of understood what was going on. And I think, from my point of view, that's the problem I have. And also looking at the list of charities, like Boys and Girls Club would not really use downtown. They use their own facility now, or the MAC. Children's Museum uses their own facility. I don't think they would go, I don't know for sure, but Friends to All goes to people's houses at Christmas. They wouldn't be doing things like this downtown. So this list really, I was a little confused on that as well. So does anybody else want to weigh in?
That being said, and I think Ronnie feels the same way I do, because she said so to me, this is wonderful that it's a outside the box idea, and I think she's indicating it's so outside the box we don't know where we are. But at the same time, I think it's a good thing to come up with new ways to approach the problem. Is you're trying to put I'm using all kinds of bad metaphors here, but that's square peg in a round box, or whatever.
Let me help you out. Ronnie, I think you bring up a really good point. I come to you for Road to the Future, and I say, hey, I got to do a setup. Boy, have I made your guys' job easy. We did it for you. The committee has set up a venue for you. You don't need any funding for that group. So everyone that comes to you and says, I'd like to do a venue, and I want to set it up. I need a stage, I need chairs. You're like, we've already funded that. We've already done all the work. Once we set up the venue, anyone that comes to you over the next 3 or 4 months that needs money for a setup, they get it for free. The venue's already set up. The money's already spent. Remember, I'm not doing an event. I'm doing a venue, and the committee's going to go out and try to find as many events as possible. So to me, this is a square peg in a square hole. And it happens to be a rectangular venue. So it's the venue, guys. It's not weird. You guys are going to be funding the setup of a venue.
And that goes back to, I think, the application, which I would personally have rather seen come through something a little bit different. We had, a couple of months ago, we talked about we have a whole basically infrastructure budget. And this would have been something to discuss at that time instead of a special events, because this is not a special event, and I understand where you're coming from. And bear with us. I think it's great. I think now McFadden Plaza has taken a lot away from Telegraph and from this other area here. And but McFadden Plaza is also owned basically by the city of Carson City. The stage is owned by the city of Carson City, and it goes back down to who owns what and who will take the responsibility for whatever it is that's owned. So I don't know where we go from here. Court?
So I've got a legal question on this for our DA. Given the way it was presented to us, does this constitute a portion or changing of the definition where we're setting a new precedent on why we're authorizing funds for things? Because again, it's something so different than what we've done. I think people are struggling with venue versus
Infrastructure.
well, venue versus event, and the venue includes infrastructure. So are we, I don't know where we would be that way on a legal standing.
If you want to allow me just a minute, let me review that and get back to you just to make sure, so that way we don't waste anybody's time.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? You must have something, I can tell.
I have the same kind of question about the infrastructure, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around. I can see the justification by saying, yes, by funding the parts that are supporting events, and we're not therefore having to fund the part of that in a future event. So I can see that argument, like that occurred to me, but I still have a hard time with it. Like, for example, if the stage is owned by this committee and someone in the city wants it outside the period of this event, is it available to them? I don't know.
This is not planned to be a mobile stage.
Yeah.
That's It's going to stay for the entire time period, hence no labor setup and tear down is the concept. That's the concept.
What happens in the winter?
In the winter, the day after Nevada Day, everything will be torn down and put back to normal, and if an ice rink is going up, an ice rink is going up. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
I mean, sorry, I didn't, yeah, so you get stored somewhere.
Lee? So we'll take a couple of minutes break here.
Okay.
And just until we find out what is what, because this is not our usual, so
Sure.
forgive us. I mean, we like to think out of the box. We like to think we think out of the box, but this is so out of the box that we're not sure what the box size is. Pardon me? Yes, I will recess the meeting for another 5 minutes. Is that okay? Thank you. Redevelopment Citizens Committee is back in order, so let's continue. Lee, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, my only concern, and I brought this up in the last meeting, was we don't have any letters of intent from potential vendors or potential events. We don't have the DBA here to talk about what they're planning to drive events to the area. Joel's not here to talk about that either. So I understand the vision. I agree with it. I think it's a good move, but I think it's early. There's nothing, it could actually wind up sitting all summer. I think that's a big concern for me.
Okay, do we have a consensus over here?
So you had asked whether or not there was anything prohibiting this type of an event from you granting it. And so we looked at the policies and procedures. There is no definition of event or no criteria other than the review criteria when considering events that the redevelopment authority has to, and so it applies to you. So these are some of the, when you make your recommendations, these are some of the criteria that you should consider with the application. And that would be for the special event funding. It would be the number of participants the event draws compared to the amount of redevelopment funding and other city support requested for the event. The amount of city funding requested for the event compared to funding obtained or sought from other sources. The amount of funding requested in past years compared to funding currently being requested. The longevity of the event in Carson City and its importance to the community. The possibility for the event to grow in the future. Potential conflicts with other special events on the same date as a proposed event, and that's if it's just one event. And other factors as deemed appropriate by the authority. So based on all that, then you would just make a recommendation to the authority whether to approve or not approve, and then you would have to make your findings why you recommend for or why you recommend against.
Okay, Lee, when you did send out your notice, that was so noted in the notice. So that's the memo you sent out on May 30th, and all that was in there. So I understand that. And that brings up a whole host of other questions, because very few of these A through G really were addressed fully. So should we go one by one and ask these questions?
Well, for some of them, look at on the second page, some of that, so most of that is addressed in there, because the type of funding, the percentage of funding, the total budget, prior years, number of estimated participants out of town. So some of the statistics, that's why I put some of that together, taking the numbers that they give and break it out, because it addresses many of those things. And some of these are not, they're not, one side is better than the other. Like you need to consider the longevity of the event in Carson City. That's up to you how to decide that. Sometimes if it's a first-time event and it's never been here, that's a good thing. That's what you want to fund. Sometimes it's an event that's been here a long time, isn't important to the community. Maybe that's an important reason. So it's not that one extreme or the other gets higher points. It's just it's a consideration that you have to make in making your decision.
And here we are with the semantics again, with the word event.
Or events.
One of the things that I have found out the hard way in trying to hold special events in Carson City is trying to find a weekend where things are not already established in this community to do another event is almost impossible, because I've tried several different events on several different dates, and some have worked much better than others. But unless you get into those skirt times of really early, when you're worried about weather in May, or almost after October Day, as you know, I'm doing the Oktoberfest now every year, and it's dicey on the weather. But when you get into that season between Memorial Day and Labor Day, I can tell you, as someone who's trying to hold special events for the city as well. It's very, very difficult not to step on somebody else's toes with regards to that. And so that, I just thought of that when we looked at all these issues here. What, Dean, if you could come up and maybe talk to, you know, I try, you know, you don't want to, when you're trying to do something to help the whole community, you're trying to bring something in, bring all the people in to help the whole community. You don't want to be stepping on everybody else's toes while you're doing it. So with that said, and with knowing how full the event calendar is for the city, my question to you would be, how are you going to deal with that?
Great question, Court. So first of all, as a business person, thank you, Court, for doing Oktoberfest. Thank you for being a promoter in this town. This is what this town needs. Thank you, Lee, for doing everything you're doing. We got to bring people here. And I'm not the promoter. I might be the promoter, but I'm not the promoter. I'm today the guy building a venue for the city to find the promoter. And I don't think this is stepping on someone's toes. I think this is saying it's built and giving Joel, having some faith in Joel, myself, the committee, to reach out to people and say, the venue is here. Carson City's built this for you. Use it. And maybe they had a 500-person venue, and now that this is built, they can do 1,000-person or market. Maybe because they have no capital to invest, they can put more money into marketing. You know, I think this is a great thing if you have a hotel. This is going to bring people here, and it's going to drive hotel traffic, not just to downtown, but all to Carson City. So today, what we're talking about is a vision that we all have to get our arms around, that it's a venue that's going to have multiple events in. So I don't think the word event needs to be defined. We know what's going to happen in this venue, multiple events. I would think year 2 would have more events than year 1. There's going to be a startup time. It won't be deadly. I promise you it won't be dead. Okay? But it's going to take some startup time. And instead of doing it once for a Road to the Future or for the DBA's Chili Cook-Off or for the DBA's Wine Walks, right? It's going to be built so that a promoter, and this town needs more promoters. You're right, Court. They're tough. Promotions are not easy. I come from Las Vegas, 25 years. I've promoted a lot of events. Much easier town to promote in, too. This is a tough town. But it's not going to, I'm trying to make it easier for promoters. I'm trying to provide that venue at no cost where the promoters might come down from Reno or Sacramento or LA or San Diego and go, wow, this is great. We might find that Hot House Nights, which is dominated in Reno, that we're working right now to bookend, either get something here before or after, which Carson has not been able to do. And it's not going to do it without the venue. So I think what you guys got to see is all I'm doing is I'm donating some land, letting them use my insurance, putting some people together in the form of a committee, building a venue, and building something so we can draw some people to Carson City. So, yeah, Cordy, it's going to be tough. Year 1. I think year 2 is easier. Year 3 is better. But at least I'm giving that promoter the leg up to get it started without using their own money, which would probably kill the event.
Dean, I agree with you about downtown. I think it's a good idea. I think the missing piece here is what's driving the events. Who's driving the events? I think that's missing here. We don't have a list of events. We have some list of some of the events. There are already events happening in the city. So who's driving the events? It would be easier, at least for me, to make this decision if I had a letter of intent from, say, 10 different promoters, as you say, that wanted to come in and do events. It would make sense at that point. But right now, we're sitting with just kind of, it's a good idea, but what's driving that?
But Lee, if I sat here with a letter from 10 promoters, wouldn't you guys say you're a little presumptuous to go out and tell people that you have a venue, make a commitment before I have a venue? I mean, come on, I need the venue, we'll put the committee together, we're going to help promote it. Would it be such a bad thing if this year the DBA did their 4 wine walks with live entertainment, if they did their 1 event for Chili Cook-Off, and we did Nevada Day promotion out there? If I did 6 things for $32,000, would that be a bad summer? That's a pretty good spend of $32,000.
Okay,
when I spent $15,000 on Road to the Future, 1 event.
So you're talking about your promotions?
No, I talked
your
about DBA.
Okay, the
Nothing. When you
DBA,
say,
okay.
When you say Dean, you're talking Nugget.
right.
And I'm not talking about anything the Nugget would do.
Okay, so we're talking about DBA events?
Correct.
Okay. Well, then that goes to the question is how come someone from the DBA is not here to talk about that today?
They were here last month, and they're not here this month. I'm here this month. So,
Okay, thank
Mike
you.
Riggs is on the committee, and he's committed to this project as well as
Yeah,
I am.
actually, Mike wasn't here last month either, so that was one of the reasons for the delay, and there was nobody from the CVB, so I think that's what. I just go back to, again, we have purchased things in the past, and I just know that giving out monies for this kind of a thing is going to hit a stumbling block, or so I assume. Okay, I'm sorry, assumption, that it's going to hit a stumbling block when you get to the full Board of Supervisors, because as I said earlier, Dean, we don't make that final decision. We can make a recommendation, and that's about it. So unless there are any other questions for
Ronnie, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Would it give you peace of mind if I said, we're not going to buy a thing? I'll change the whole plan, and I won't bid it out. I won't look at cost versus rental. I'll rent it all. It's a temporary venue. No storage, no maintenance, rent it all. If I came in here today and said that's the case, would that be easier to comprehend? There's no asset. It's done. I just have the guys bring it back. I'm not really looking to the future, because what I'm looking for is a cost versus rental and be able to use it for multiple years. But if the stumbling block is who owns it, hey, the city can have it. You store it, you maintain it. You guys can. There's no ownership here. I'm just looking at cost versus benefit. But if the issue is about an asset value, I'll just rent. I'll rent.
I don't know how to respond to that. I just am stating basically what I have seen in the past, Dean, okay? That is a stumbling block. So does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, do you have any other further comments?
No, I'll close with this. Whatever you guys decide, we appreciate the support. I'm just trying to make something happen in downtown Carson City. And so you can see me and my group of supporters here, okay, are really trying to push Carson City and bring a lot of people in.
And Dean, I think that's one of the issues. You're a great representative, and you're doing it on your own, and we really, really appreciate it. And anything that comes to downtown Carson and is wonderful. And as Court said, there's an awful lot, even looking at what was just approved last week by the board. I mean, the 11 amp concert series, the Mile High Jazz Band, all of that. I mean, there's a lot going on in the downtown core. Not to say that there can't be any more, because not everybody wants to go to jazz or whatever, the 11 concert is going to be that night, and maybe what you would have would be better. I'd like to also point out just one more thing about Silver Dollar Car Classic. That was a major event prior to Hot August Nights that was held every year here. I don't know whether it's held here anymore, but that was funded every year as well. So I do know that one of the things that we were able to do this last time is we had some monies in reserve that we were able to give to the fair, the Carson City Fair, so that they could, get off the ground. So if nothing happens here tonight, I mean, you will go before the Board of Supervisors, but if there is monies left over, that certainly, I'm sure, Lee, you can help me on this, can come back and say, hey, we've got this brand new event, whether it's a chili event or whatever it is, I need some funding for this because I know this is going to bring in 20,000 people or whatever it is. So that's one of the things that we've liked to have in the past, is to have monies for the future. So I don't know where we go from here. So anybody want to make a motion?
I'll just say that as the lone member here who's basically a liaison from the board, I have no intention of making motions. I don't think I've made one to date, and I don't think I'll make one in the future, because I want this board to operate independent of any sway that I might be perceived to have or not have. I don't feel I have any particular sway just because I'm a member of the Board of Supervisors. I will say, however, that as a member of the Board of Supervisors, I like this idea personally, and I like the idea, but I don't like it at this funding level. I don't think that I would go for 16,000 and a dollar for dollar match with the private sector, although Dean has said that the private sector would go higher if it had to. So consequently, I'm just saying that when it got to the board, if it got to the board and there were a monetary value attached, it would have to be smaller than 16,000. But I look favorably on the idea generally.
Okay, any other comments? Go ahead.
I mean, my feeling is that I guess it needs more consideration. I'd be hesitant to stop it here at this point. So I have the same concerns about the funding levels, and maybe it is just the services aspect that we fund, the initial setup that we fund, rather than the full 16,000, because then we do go into the purchase of tents and have other issues. So it'd be like the permitting, this initial labor for setup, the hand washing stations, the weekly services for the toilets and that kind of thing. And that is a reduced level, so it may be more minimal here.
Court?
I know, I think it's a great thing you're doing, Dean. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I applaud you for stepping up with your team to do something down there and to donate the land. I think that's fantastic. A couple of things I stumble with. I would respectfully disagree to a point on, I don't think it would be presumptuous for you to stand here and say I had 10 letters of intent, because while you don't have the venue in place, you can sell the vision you're selling to us to those potential 10 people too, saying, hey, would you come here and do this if we had X, Y, and Z? And then you might have somebody saying, yes, I would. And so I think that there could be more of that. At this stage, for me, it's early, because it seems like, yes, it's a lot of money, but it seems like there's nothing concrete except the idea, the dream, as you spoke, and the actual either venue or assets, even if we change the assets and it becomes something else. But the event, I mean, or what event? What are we funding as far as event? So that's kind of where I'm stumbling a little bit on it, just to say my 2 cents.
Lee, have any final comments? Okay. Lee, we could do sort of, yeah, we could sort of do like we did last time, because, no?
Don't do what you did last time on this one. So we're talking about this. So I think you've made some good points, and they do relate to the considerations that you need to make, and the number of participants, those types of things. I think we have a good list here. So due process-wise, you're making a recommendation to the Redevelopment Authority Board of Supervisors. So you need to make a motion one way or the other with your findings. I think we have a good background of your concerns with it if you're recommending for it to not be funded. So we'll note those, but we do want a motion one way or the other.
Question, Lee. It's not really one way or the other. We have not a recommendation or anything in between the requested recommendation, right?
It's not just one way or another. Right. It could be a recommendation.
There could be some interim thing between outright denial or outright approval.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Dean, what could you live with?
Guys,
It's not 16,000.
look, like I said before, any contribution you guys make is going to be very welcome. Okay, the private sector is going to probably be making up more than the 32,000. You know, when we get this thing done, we're going to do it right. So whatever you guys feel comfortable with, you're not going to hurt my feelings one way or the other. If you cancel the entire event, you're going to save me a lot of time and a lot of money. What I'm doing is not for the nugget. I'm moving the wine walk outside of my 4 doors, and I'm moving it to an outdoor venue for one reason. I think it's better for Carson City. Okay, It's better for me to keep everything inside my four walls. If this was selfish, I'd be using my 10,000 square foot ballroom for all these events. I wouldn't be going outside. But I don't think that's what's best for Carson City. I think we need some energy. We need some excitement. I like what's been done in McFadden Plaza. That's neat. It's cool. But this is a completely different type of venue. That's for a couple hundred people. This is something that's going to open the doors to bring thousands of people in a big format to Carson City. So all I'm doing as Dean DeLula from the Carson Nugget is offering up my land today. And I'm saying that I will back it, I'll support it, I'll financially contribute, I'll give 100% support to the CCVP, which I have complete confidence in based on the number of groups coming to town. I'll give my support to the DBA. And as the Carson Nugget speaking right now, I'm just pledging my support to this venue. As a member of the committee, I'm saying, hey, we're going to bring a venue to Carson City that is great, and I think it's going to help all hoteliers and downtown businesses. We need a head count driver downtown, guys. We have a beautiful road right now, and the volumes have not picked up. Legislature, I don't know if you guys felt it. We felt very little downtown this year. We didn't get the walk traffic. We need some excitement. We need a spark. We need a catalyst. What I'm bringing to you today is a potential catalyst. That's all I'm saying. If you guys don't feel comfortable with the number of the budget, just tell me what you feel comfortable with, and I'll work my tail off to find the private sector to make up the balance.
Okay, I bring it back to you all.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to try this and see get a pulse at least on what's going on up here. So, Court Cardinal, for the record, I make a motion for possible action to make a recommendation to the Redevelopment Authority regarding the expenditure of $5,000 from the Redevelopment Revolving Fund for fiscal year 2017-18 for the Downtown Business Association 2017 Arlington Plaza Community Event Venue to be used towards event funds for future events in the fiscal year 2017-18. Is that okay-ish?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? Okay. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. So Dean, as I hear this, you've got $5,000 to begin. So, and there is money for the future that maybe you can come in if you have a big venue that you need to do some marketing or whatever for in the traditional, what we understand better, okay? I mean, this has been a learning lesson for all of us tonight because it's been different. So we appreciate your patience, and I can't wait to support what you have, but at least you've got something.
Thank you, guys.
Any other further comments from you?
Yeah, in closing, on behalf of my entire support structure, I think I can speak for them and say thank you very much. Any contribution, I think, is a movement in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, and keep in mind that this is just a recommendation to the full board, okay? Is there, our public is leaving.
Bring all that support
Is-
back
yeah, bring
when the
that-
time comes.
So the public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Redevelopment Authority's Citizens Committee, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Seeing nobody out there, or you have something?
Do you want to skip the other stuff? Is anybody else?
Skip the other stuff for possible adjournment. Oh, I'm sorry. Staff reports, do you have any staff reports?
mostly just an opportunity for you to see if you have anything for, just talk about future agenda items a little bit. First, the board adopted the policy regarding arts and cultural events. They actually struggled quite a bit on the precise wording of it, but effectively it's the same, that arts and cultural events are important, they'll consider them, but they didn't have a fixed dollar amount in there. Our next regular meeting's August. I don't have any specific items coming up between them. We'll see if we get any facade improvement program applications before them. I think at a minimum at that meeting, I'll give a report on where we stand with all the construction. There should be more going on in the next couple months to finish up what's already been awarded. And if you know any property owners that can use it, we can start reaching out to others because we have the new funds coming up. I think in August, possibly bring utility extension policies to you, but then it's not till in November is when we'll start talking about the allocation plan for the next year, but I don't have anything else to report right now.
I have one question that might relate to a future agenda item, and that is, as we all know, unfortunately, Bell's is going out of business, which means there's quite a bit of money that will probably go back into redevelopment funds. Is that not correct?
So right now, the incentive for that property relates to a sales tax reimbursement that's being paid from the redevelopment fund. So in the budget, the reimbursement's going to be reduced by whatever their, proportionally by whatever sales they were in that. But if they get another tenant in right away, it's not, the incentive was for the property and to lease the space. So it will still help them release the space, and it'll continue. So if they get a new tenant, that'll continue.
From what I'm hearing, it's not going to be a sales tax tenant. So what happens then when that money goes back in, which is roughly about $160,000? What happens with that money then?
So the $160,000 that's in the budget includes that wasn't just for Bell's, but that was so that includes Sportsman's Warehouse, but also I forget the name of it, but the one with Big Lots, Big Five, and Burlington. So that 160 pays for all of that incentive, sales tax
so
reimbursement.
that's not
So it's only a
just for
portion
the
of that
Bell's.
160, yeah. Yeah, Bell's represents only a portion of the 160, what I meant to say, yeah.
All right, does anybody have any reports? Or I just want to mention that downtown, and Dean left, but this is going to be at his property on the Main Street parking lot, it's called, is the Revival Car Show that will be Saturday, June 10th, 12 noon to 5 p.m. And that's it, that's all. So,
One last public comment. At the very end, we have to have a public comment.
okay, public, this is your chance. Is there any public comment? Do you want me to read this again? Okay. Do you read this again? I don't have to read it again, okay. So for possible, since there's no public here, so for possible action, adjournment, do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, guys. It was an interesting meeting.